Welcome to the show. Zoe Routh here. My question for you this week is, how can business be a force for good in the world? Yes, it's time to get our altruism on and get into it. Let's do it. On Planet Human this week, I read an interesting statistic that said that there's not one country in the world that has a larger fertility rate than they did in 1950. What does that mean? That means globally, fertility rates are declining. And for some countries, that's an enormous problem because they definitely won't have enough people to replace those that are here. And it'll mean a shortage of workers for just getting the basics in society done. Now, some forecast if that continues to decline at the rate that it's going, this could cause a social collapse. It's worth asking, though, what does this mean for us? What could this mean for us? And what do we need to do now to prepare for what's next? If you're having labor shortages now, think about what it could be in 20, 30 years from now. That means we need to invest in different ways of doing and operating and thinking about what we need as a society to maintain our current lifestyles and levels of living, standard of living, I guess. So there's lots to manage at a global social level, as well as asking what does it mean for our business at the moment. On Planet Zoe, there's been a lot happening. I have been to Sydney. I've been a week out in the hinterland outside of Brisbane in the beautiful scenic Rim area, running a leadership development program with Outback Initiatives for Peter Cullen Trust, the Women in Water program. It was a fabulous program, wonderful women really diving deep into what they need in order to step up and be the leaders that the water sector needs in order to deliver complex strategies to deal with such a complex, interconnected sector. Water affects all of us in terms of agriculture and industry and the environment and communities. So that's what I've been doing from a professional development or professional offering point of view. Books, I have some news. Also, Olympus Bound, my book number 2. Where is it? Where are you, Olympus Bound? Oh, here we go. Just grab it off the shelf. Olympus Bound. Book number 2 in the Gaia series has won a silver medal at the Reader's Favorites Awards, just announced on September the 1st. So I am thrilled. I'd say over the moon. Kind of a joke because it's about building the first community on the moon. I'm thrilled that Olympus Bound has received recognition alongside Olympus Project, which won a gold medal at the Reader's Favorites last year. And secretly, I really hope that Olympus Bound would win a gold. I think it's a better book than the Olympus Project, but there you go. Awards are awards, and you don't know who you're competing against. Good for us. We have a silver medal with Olympus Bound, so I'm thrilled with that. And the next book in this series, Olympus Rising, is in the second round of edits, back with the editor. So it'll come back to me to then go into copy edits and then typesetting and then proofreading. And we are in the slide to the finish line. So hopefully it'll be out by the end of this year. No promises. And the last thing in the Planet Zoe or on Planet Zoe is I have launched the Leadership Conclave. It is open for registrations for early bird. That is happening Friday, November 8th in Canberra in my favorite venue at Kappakumlong out in Tharwa. And this will be a whole day intensive that's great to bring you and your team along to look at strategy. In particular, what are the trends going to affect and impact us in 2025? And what can we do now in order to prepare for what's next? We'll look at some of the big hidden drivers that may not be bubbling to the surface in your mind right now. I know elections are on the mind, as well as cost of living, as well as inflation rates. Those are obvious ones. There are some other ones that will affect us in terms of our business development. So come along to that. I'll put a link in the show notes where you can register for the Leadership Conclave. Come and hang out with me in person and with other amazing teams and leaders to look at really savvy strategy for 2025. It's coming faster than you probably expect. It's sailing quickly towards the end of the year. All this reflection on globally conscious leadership and its impact on business had me thinking, what if we started the day with a different set of questions? Now, I'm not sure how you start your day with your questions. Mine are something like, okay, what can I get done today? What if we started with a different set? And I wrote up a few that can help reshape what we're after. Here we go. Let's see if the camera will focus on that. Here we go. And those questions are, what can I do today to love the earth? And I think if we put the earth at the center of our questions, it changes how we prioritize what we do and what we think about. And the next one is, what can I do today to be kind? I think if we're feeling low in ourselves or shrunken in some way, when we think about what can we do to be kind, it gets us out of thinking about ourselves and thinking about others. And that's a really more uplifting place to be. So what can I do to be kind? And the third one is, what can I do today to create a positive ripple in the world? And I think these three questions help us channel our sense of what it means to be a globally conscious leader and how we can take baby steps or incremental steps to create a positive effect. It's not always about changing systems, such as looking at fertility rates across the nation or the globe. That's a big picture issue. It's also about what we're doing day to day in our small moments to create that interconnected positive ripple effect. And I think that's where we're going to get some traction as leaders, is when we start with ourselves and ripple out. So that's how we might change global consciousness and have global leadership be a force for good in the world. That's my neat summary. Now we're going to go into a deeper conversation with my guest for today. And here we come to tea time in the office kitchen. Yum, yum. Tea time in the office kitchen. We have, my guest today is John Lamy. John Lamy is a management consultant. He's been working in that space since 1995. Prior to that, he worked with Hewlett-Packard in the research and development part of the organization for 25 years. And he's been at the forefront of leading really amazing transformations. And now he sits in the crossroads of ethics, global conscious leadership, and helping leaders and teams build that into their strategic thinking. Now, without further ado, here's John. Away from Southern Oregon on the west coast of the United States. Welcome to the show, John Lamy.
Thank you, Zoe. I really appreciate the chance to be with you tonight. Well, it's daytime there, but it's nighttime here.
So. Yeah, I love that. We're always on diametrically opposed aspects of the globe, and yet still on the same planet. And that's actually a beautiful segue into the whole concept and content and context of our conversation, which is about globally conscious leadership. What the heck does that mean from your point of view?
Yeah. My partner Steve and I thought a lot about what to call ourselves. We want to offer opportunities for businesses to help with the climate crisis. And we're pretty convinced that there are a lot of businesses like that. But what's missing? What do they need? They don't need to know much about CO2 and fossil fuels. They know that already. But the consciousness is where they need help. You had a person on your podcast, Wendy Nash, a couple of weeks ago that talked about meditation and insight, things like that. And we're heading in that direction a little bit. We're also heading in the direction of techniques, management, and leadership processes that can really help people move forward. And then just to focus on the climate and all the things you have to do to really make a difference and still be profitable. You know, I'm an MBA. I still am a huge believer that you got to make some money. Maybe you don't make as much as you would have, but you do just fine, and you get to do a whole bunch of other stuff. But that's basically the focus of what we're trying to do.
Okay, so let's join the dots a little bit from a couple of things that you mentioned there. So we're talking about conscious leadership, and you said you're exploring meditation practices, and that's self-regulation piece and the consciousness or conscious part of it. How does meditation fit into the picture of dealing with the climate crisis? Like, how do those dots connect?
Yeah, good question. And it's not just meditation. We want to make available to your C-suite and also to your employees in general any kind of an interior practice that helps. But I think I'll answer your question with the thing I saw today, a documentary about John Denver. Now, you're probably too young to remember John Denver, folk singer. He was
I know
Mr.
John
Happy.
Denver.
Yeah, Mr. Happy, Mr. Sunshine. But it turns out on the inside, he was very sad. sad person, always challenged. Um, he did not appear to have the inner resources that it took to get him into showbiz and to hold it for a long time. He did it for 15 years, but then he crashed, basically. So that's what we're trying to address with that part of our program is to just make available even things like yoga, things like body work, things like journaling, that people just know that they're available, that they can get some coaching on that, and that from that comes inner resources to help you make it through because this is not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. There's a lot of pushback. There's a lot of money lined up, by the fossil fuel companies and so on to push back against responding to climate change. So you're going to have inner resources. And I can speak from experience, as I'm sure Wendy did when she was with you. The resources really, really help. Well, that's the longish answer to what you
Okay.
said.
I get
Yeah.
it. So what you're saying, oh, it's not just an easy step and breeze through the park of let's solve climate crisis with business and make a profit. There's
Yep.
actually some deep self-mastery and self-supporting practices that we need to engage with because it's a
Yep.
global complex challenge and there are a lot of naysayers and resistance to proactive activity to try and resolve some of these issues. Okay, great.
Yep.
That's
Exactly.
fantastic. So to your
Yep.
next point then, we still got to make money. And one of your principles is to make business a force for good. And that doesn't mean throwing out all your profits to put to a cause, but those two things can be interlinked. Can you tell me a little bit more about your business principles related to this, please?
Yeah. Again, a great question. Right now, if you just ask the person in the street business, and they would say, well, it's just this gigantic profit-making machine that doesn't seem to care about anything else. That's kind of the branding. Not everybody's going to say that, and that's a little bit exaggerated, but that's unfortunately what you're going to hear quite a bit of. And then you see some people in the public eye who are billionaires that are doing things that kind of make you think that way. And what we're about, among several other things, is to reverse that image and to say, no, we think business could be, should be, and can be an actual force, an actual thing to be reckoned with that moves the planet in a direction that we really all want. It's what do we want for our granddaughter? That kind of thing. What do we really want? And that includes the company. I want my employees to say, boy, I love working there. I love working there. I want my community to say, man, I'm glad we've got this company here in our town. I want the trade association that I'm part of globally to say that company really contributes. And I want the world as a whole to say, these folks are helping with climate change. They're doing this, 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 and this. For example, quite a few companies now have carbon neutrality by X date that they pledged to. And I say, yay, great. Now, there's also an appalling lack of mechanism. And there's some greenwashing. And I'm old enough to not be naive about that greenwashing. But all told, it's in a good direction of let's have business be out there, kind of leading the charge. If Mary Barra of General Motors testifies in Congress about EVs, they listen. They listen. If John Lamy testifies in front of Congress, which is not going to happen, they don't care. Who's this guy? So we focus on business for that reason, and that business really can influence government and can influence policy, things like that. So that's the story on business as a force for good.
It really is two warring philosophies, it feels like. So there's the everything for profit philosophy, and then there's the business for good philosophy. And it's interesting how the data shows that the business for good businesses actually tend to do better than the business for profit only. Though it's hard to deny the attraction of the mega companies that are doing extraordinarily well, mostly tech companies. Um,
Mhm.
so how do we entice people to move to a different worldview? And should we entice people to move to a different worldview?
Yeah. Um, that's kind of the hard question right there. Uh, Steve and I, we decided not to be in the business of persuading people. If somebody is just
Okay.
hard over, um, our life is too short. And I think you know from the whole adoption of innovations, that whole study from decades ago, uh, the laggards, you know, they're not gonna come around. You need to have the kind of leading folks. What do we call these guys? The what are they? Well, the leading edge thinkers. Uh, they're the ones that can convince the rest of the body politic. Um, what's going to attract them is a couple of things. First of all, I think honesty, to just say, you know what, you will have expenses that you didn't have previously. You're going to have externalities that you're going to recognize and acknowledge, and you're going to want to go after. Um, I worked for a big company, Silicon Valley, and one day a guy dumped a bucket of trichloroethylene right out the back door. It
I
wasn't,
don't know what
just
that
a,
is, but it doesn't sound good.
it's not good. It's a solvent, but it's also carcinogenic. We stopped using it after a while. Uh, but here's what happened. The company immediately went to the local newspaper and told them, we hired a bunch of forensic geologists to drill wells all around the plume. There's this thing called the plume where it goes through the town. People had to stop using their wells for water. It was ugly, ugly, and we had to pay for a lot of stuff. But the town really, really respected the fact that we were so open and that we did a lot to mitigate. We dug it up and we pumped it out and all this kind of stuff. It took a couple of years, but and it cost money, but the payback was huge. Uh, the way the town regarded us, it was like a marriage at that point. So, point of that one is sort of point number one is integrity. We've got to be honest about it. It's going to cost some money. And if you are making products now that are toxic and you stop making them, that's going to be revenue that's lost. Now, how profitable were they? We don't know. So we need to be honest about that. Now, but let's go look at the other side. As you begin to bring in uh, leadership practices, which I'm sure, Zoe, on your podcast, you probably talk about this quite a bit, things that make your company just run better. Uh, that's going to help with both the revenue and the expense side of things. Uh, your employees, by and large, we're finding that they really like it when the company's getting on board. Look at Patagonia. You know, everybody knows about Patagonia. They're just doing great stuff and they're giving all their money to the environment. All. People are proud to work for a company like that. So that really helps. And then third is when you start to come out with new products that are more climate friendly, there is a segment. Now, it's not huge right now, but it's growing that like that and will pay a little bit of a green premium, not huge, but a little bit of a green premium to support you. So, okay, now we're starting to swing things over. And then the fourth thing is something that you probably have heard. Simon Sinek, he's somebody from your home country, a Brit marketing consultant. He said when Apple was first getting started, people didn't buy them because they had a computer. They could get computers anyplace. They bought Apple products because values alignment. Their values were aligned. Apple had a big campaign about we're a computer for the rest of everybody, not people who like HTTP : // No, it's a computer for, and they like the values of that. And that's what got Apple going. And now it's one of the biggest companies there is. Um, so those are the kind of things that are going to help. And they do help. We just know this from having done it.
That was four. Four, are they steps or they're principles?
Well, those are just four things in our,
Four aspects to consider when we're looking at how to solve the climate crisis through business.
yep, exactly.
Okay. All right. So, starting point then, we've kind of covered that off. Integrity, knowing that it's going to cost you money, know that your employees will like it, your customers will like it. They'll pay a little bit more to assist you in your campaign to be a more climate friendly company.
Yep.
How does so there's how do we actually help solve the climate crisis? Is it just chipping away by making sure that our products and services are eco-friendly? Is that the starting point, or is there another grander scheme on top of that, or both?
There's a grander scheme. Um,
Okay.
and at the risk of talking too long and hogging up all the airtime here, we have really just looking over what we do. We've distilled it into a process that has about 12 steps. So I'm going to start talking. I meant maybe not be too thorough here, but you start out with a foundation. Um, and you look at those principles that you had originally asked about in your note to me.
Mhm.
We ask the C-suite to just think about the fundamental principles. And we've got, at this point, six of them. You mentioned five of them. Um,
Okay.
it sounds kind of funny, but the first principle, and it goes back to that gal that you had on, Wendy Nash, love the earth. Right now, we have this mindset of alienation from the earth. You know, the earth is a warehouse where we can go get stuff, and then a dump where we can dump stuff. And it's kind of transactional like that. We've lost sight of the fact that we are integral with the earth. We're part and parcel with the earth. So we want people to just think about that. It's not the kind of thing that you beat them up with or you sign the dotted line. Just you think about it. Um, the second principle that we've talked about is take interconnection to heart, that we're interconnected. Here's you in Australia. Here's me in the United States. We have a big election coming up, and everybody around the world is looking at us saying, holy cow, what's going to happen? Because you guys really affect us.
Yep.
We have some employees, we have some employees in India, and we think about Modi and we think about what's going on in India.
Mm.
That's a pretty big deal. So we got to think about interconnection, and that gets on down to the granddaughter thing. We talk about that occasionally. So there's six of those kind of principles like that we want people to just think about. And then I've already talked about some kind of personal development that make it okay. Just make that be okay. And then you set goals for the company.
Okay. Can I
Uh,
just interrupt for a sec? Um,
yeah,
Picking up on that last point, make
yeah.
what be okay? The whole process that we're going through, or what's
It,
the okay part that we need to make
the okay
happen?
part is interior work.
Okay.
That it's okay to be journaling.
Okay.
Um, as I watched this John Denver piece today, I thought, I wonder if the people around him made it okay for him to say, you know what, I am feeling super depressed. I need help. I wonder if that was okay. Um, so I think in a company, where I used to work in Silicon Valley, we had all kinds of things available. We had all kinds of, we had a gym, we had people that taught yoga, we had body work of various flavors. I understand Google has meditation coaching, that kind of thing, just to make all that okay. Why? So people can make it through the long haul.
Yeah,
Because it's
it is overwhelming. You start thinking about the interconnectedness of all things. You think about the scale of the issues, and it's a fast track to feeling helpless and small. And then we have to circle back to the interconnectedness of all things as a paradox, going, well, we may feel small, and we are all interconnected. Therefore, something that I do will have a ripple effect. But it's hard to get that. Sometimes we sit on at when we're looking at the global events, feeling like we can't influence anything. Uh, Also, I want to make sure that we close off the six principles because otherwise I feel like that's unfinished. So we've got two. We got love the earth,
Yep.
take interconnection to heart. What are three, four,
Yep.
five, and six?
Okay. And these sound so easy, but third one is be kind.
I love that.
Be kind. And now, you know, when I got my MBA, they did not talk about being kind. Uh, would you help people out? When I was managing an R&D group, this one guy had young kids that had soccer at 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. I let him go. Go to soccer. It's okay. Just and do I let everybody go? No, no, just him. That's not fair, but it's kind. All kinds of little examples where um, we are so legalistic, but how about just plain old kindness? So that's the third principle. The fourth one is treat all people equally. And the deal there is I'm a white guy, college educated, technical. Well, that's my tribe. We're special. We need kind of special treatment. Why don't we treat us a little bit better? And maybe women can be kind of okay, but second. Maybe people of color can be, okay, but third. Just so my guys get the best. My guys, because they're my guys. Do people do that in this day and age, 2024? You'd think not.
Yep.
People do it all the time. I'm sure I do it. It's unconscious. So we have to raise it to consciousness and then say, nope, we're going to just not do that. We're going to treat people equally. Sounds easy. The fifth one is respect our life's journeys. And there was a scholar named Joseph Campbell that wrote this fabulous book, I think back in the 50s, about the hero's journey. And his point was that universally, throughout the whole planet, all the cultures have this idea of a hero that leaves home, goes out on a journey, finds a boon, finds something valuable, and brings it back. That's a kind of a very summary thing of a big, thick book. But we all go through that. The reason those stories persist is we go through that. We all have to leave home in some way, psychologically. Physically, yes, you left home, you left England. I left my home in the Midwest, but psychologically, you leave your parents, you leave maybe the church you grew up with, the culture you grew up, whatever. You leave and then you go get something and bring it back. Let's help each other with that. And let's recognize, as a boss, I would recognize that somebody's going through something. And given this person a certain assignment that may stretch them a little bit, and maybe they won't do quite as good a job as this other person might, but it's in line with their journey. So maybe I do that. That kind of thinking would permeate. So that's number 5 is respect our life journey. The last one is own our externalities. We're really big on looking at externalities, like that bucket of TCE is only about a gallon. That's an externality, meaning it's something that impacts other people that does not show up on our financials. That's kind of my simple economics definition of an externality. And I'm proud to say that my company, Hewlett Packard, owned it. They said, guys, we've screwed up here. And they did something about it. It's very easy to blow it away. And there's just thousands of examples of that, of people just blown away. So own our externality. And some of them are good. Some stuff we do, we had people on the school board and people in the city council. Those are externalities. They don't show up on our financials, but we did that. So anyway,
Awesome. Thank you for sharing those. That was fantastic. Now, John, are you ready for the Fast 3?
I am.
Okay, here we go. Rapid fire. What is the future technology you most want right now?
This is going to sound like I'm flaking on you, but solar. And you say, wait, solar, we got solar. We do, but
Mm,
we need to really, really exploit it. I am not a big fan of nuclear, and they talk about small modular reactors. They talk about sodium cooled, blah, 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 blah. I'm not buying it. So fusion, cold fusion, sorry, not buying it. I'm not too much of a tech. I'm a technical guy, of a engineering degree. So solar, one word,
okay.
solar.
That's a massive conversation right there. Nuclear fusion, nuclear fission, hydrogen, solar, wind power, you name it.
Yep.
Okay, number two, what's the best tip you ever got for leadership?
Uh, this was when our son was a little kid. Charlotte's Web. I don't know. Are you acquainted with Charlotte's Web? It's
I
a
know
kid.
that beautiful story. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
I couldn't watch it more than once on the Disney movie because it just made me cry too much.
Yep. The reason I like it is here's this spider, and she's very smart. She's articulate. She speaks English. She can write in the web. She is a very advanced, sophisticated character.
Yeah.
And what she does is she says, "That's some pig. That's some pig." I can almost feel myself tearing up just thinking about that.
Keep
And
going to me too.
that saves the life of Wilbur, the pig, that she says, "That's some pig." And the point is, if you're a boss and you have a report that does something good, you run up to your boss and say, "Hey, look what Mary did. Let me show you what Mary did." You put the spotlight on her. And if your boss has this great idea, you run down to your folks and say, "Hey, look what the boss is doing here. Look what Susan is doing." Point to the contribution that other folks are making. It helps them. It helps the other folks on the rest of the environment. And it actually, people appreciate you when you do that. Instead of saying, "Well, I had this great idea." People don't like that. So I
That's
call that my
beautiful.
Charlotte's Web approach to management. I don't know if that fits into the Zoe bag of things that you can do, but
I love
that's what.
it. I'm going to call that the that's some pig principle.
Yep, yep.
Awesome. John, what are you reading? This is question number three. What are you reading or listening to right now?
This is where I'm going to really go on a limb. I'm reading a book called The Wakeful Body. The
Okay.
Wakeful Body by Willa Baker. It's a Buddhist book. Um, she talks about embodiment. And the reason I'm not worried about bringing it up here is most of the folks, you and me and other folks listening, are all cerebral. We're pretty much cerebral. We operate on that level and we sort of disregard our bodies. But the feeling, the sense of presence, um, the ability to work through patterns, lifelong patterns that have held you back. Maybe it's self-doubt. Maybe it's a compulsory, I don't know. With me, it's compulsive list making. But by working with the body, you can make progress on that. So that's the book I'm reading, and I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it.
Well, thank you for sharing. That's really cool. And that was the Fast Three.
Fast three, all right. I probably didn't go as fast as I could have, but anyway, there it is.
Awesome. All right. Now, coming to the end of tea time in the office kitchen, I know that
Mhm.
you have a community of leaders that center around building the capability in corporate social responsibility. Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Well, we don't use that language very much. Uh,
Oh,
we really have focused on just the globally conscious leader and doing
okay.
what they can for climate change, recognizing uh, that the wording that you used there, it kind of goes along for the ride, or maybe we go along for the ride with it, but that, they don't get separated, but we kind of focus on climate. And yes, there's a bunch of other issues. There's equity, there's health, there's women's health. I mean, the list goes on quite a ways. And they're all big deals. But we're just kind of focused on global climate change. And we've really managed to attract, we're still kind of getting started, frankly. We're just getting going, but we've attracted a number of good folks who have helped us make videos that cover all kinds of different subjects. So we're happy with just staying focused like that.
Beautiful. And where can
Yeah.
people find out more about your community?
Go to our website. I'm sure everybody says that, thegloballyconsciousleader.com. Look at the videos. I've got one on strategic planning that I'm real happy with. It's 12 installments, and you can watch it with your C-suite and do it. Take a look at the videos, and if you like them, and they're all free, they're always free. If you feel good about them, and if you feel like this is maybe where you belong, then we have this thing called coached peer circles. Not free, but we meet like, for example, every Tuesday at 4 o'clock with something up to about 8 people. Would be with me or with Steve or there's a bunch of people that do it. And you get more specific coaching. One, you get triangulation because you see other companies that are struggling with the same things or similar things. Two, and then three, you get pretty good feedback from the other companies. They say, well, we tried that a while back and it didn't work, but we did this and it did work. And then fourth, we got us as old consultants that are sort of grizzled and white-haired, and we can say, well, try this. So
Awesome.
that's where people go.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. Is there a question I haven't asked that you wish I would, so that you could answer it?
Oh, let me think about that. That's a good one. You might ask, who is your target audience? And it really is business leaders. Maybe we've already said that. Anybody within a business or within a nonprofit or within any kind of a group that aspires to be a leader is fine. We'd love to have them. That's who we're going for. So if a person puts themselves into that category and they're interested in helping with climate, that's our target.
Beautiful. That's wonderful. John, thank you so much for sharing your perspective and your insights and your principles on how to become a globally conscious leader and join the solution making for solving climate crisis. I'm so deeply grateful and appreciative of your wisdom and your work. Thank you so much.
Well, Zoe, I'm going to just say back at you, the way you ask questions, the way you are, your personality, your presence, you make it very easy to talk. So I just thank you so much for the opportunity.
It's a pleasure. On Read to Lead this week, we have an oldie and a goodie. It's by Carolyn Butler Madden. I've recommended this book previously. Carolyn has been on the show. I really value and appreciate her work. And she has a very thorough step-by-step process on how we get our values and apply them into business. And I love the way that she does this in this book, because it's not just a bolt-on greenwashing effect of trying to do good in the world for environment, social impact and governance type of thing. It's actually an integrated process where the businesses that we run are ethically based and purpose driven, whether it's a for-profit or a not-for-profit, which is really for-profit, but to reinvest in its purpose, whatever angle you take it from. When we have businesses that have these values integrated into all of our processes, just as our guest this week will demonstrate or has demonstrated, then we elevate global consciousness, we elevate the impact we have in the world, and we do good while having our businesses be good. What more can you ask? That is For Love and Money by Carolyn Butler Madden. Well, that's the show for this week. I do hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, please rate and review the show. It really does actually help a lot to get the show more visible, get the messages out there, and get more leaders thinking deeply about these ideas about the future of leadership and how we can do things now to improve what's coming. So rate, review, comment, email me, zoe@zoerouth.com, sing out on the socials. I'm across all of the social media platforms on LinkedIn, Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Threads. Also, I talk a lot about books on Threads. Would love to hear from you. This makes it more of a conversation. In the meantime, live with grace, lead in service, live well, lead well.